You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
All right, welcome everyone to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as usual, my co-host Ricky Squid Vaive. Squid, how's that book tour coming?
Coming pretty good, Mike. A lot of work, a lot of interviews, a lot of Zoom things, and so on. And but you know what? It's going pretty good. I'm enjoying doing the interviews, and after the first week, I think they put them into categories like sports, nonfiction, or whatever it might be. And after the first week of the release, it was the 10th best-selling book in the country. So I guess I got to say it's doing pretty good.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Now listen, there's something different about you. What does this look like?
Well, I got the hair all done today and got it chopped off a little bit. It was getting a little bit long. And, down here in Niagara, we're, a little bit more, I don't know how you put it, cautious or smart, that we're not totally shut down here. So I can go and get my hair cut.
Well, isn't that nice? Well, you're a media star now, right? So you have to look good. You have to look good. Well, today we have a little different type show. We've had a lot of requests to hear a conversation actually, let me check that I had through technical difficulties. My partner was cut out of this conversation with Leaf star Auston Matthews a number of months ago. It was for another network. We do have that for you guys today to listen to. It's pretty good. We think it's insightful because it was during the lockdown period, and they're basically in lockdown period now again and doing some training on their own. So we think you'll enjoy that. And so I'll have a listen to that in a few minutes. But a couple of things, couple of our new segments here. Today, December the 5th in 1972, Dave Keon became the first player in Maple Leaf history to score 300 goals and the 17th player to do that in NHL history.
Wow.
Not bad, eh?
Yeah, that's surprising, really.
If you think about it.
That he was only the 17th player. Mind you, I mean, back before that, they didn't play that many games, but that's pretty cool.
That's not bad. And today, on this day, on December the 5th, is the first time in NHL history. This is going back to 1925, by the way. First time in NHL history, a team from New York faced a team from Toronto, and the Leafs beat them. How about that? And that was the St. Pat's, by the way, that beat the New York Rangers.
That's good.
The old Rangers team. And the last one here. Here's one that we love this name coming up all the time. Mike Keenan became just the second man in NHL history to coach his 8th team. Now, actually, he was coaching Florida at the time. Here's the question for you, Squid. Who's the other player? Who's the other coach that coached 8 teams in the NHL?
Oh my goodness.
He coached Toronto. One of them, he coached Toronto one stint. His first NHL job was with Toronto. I'll give you that hint. In the 70s. You know him. You almost said it.
Roger Nielsen?
Exactly. Now,
really?
It's a little bit.
8 teams?
Well, it's a little bit of because I think near the end before he passed, he coached 2 games in Ottawa. To be the 8th team in 2000 and 2001. But Keenan actually coached Calgary his last stop, and he coached the full season. So, Mike got around, that's for sure.
Well, it's like one of those things where, all coaches have a shelf life, and some of them are longer than others. And back in those days, Mike was one of those coaches that kind of, had a 3-year shelf life. And if he had success, he could hang on for 4, maybe 5. But if he didn't, he would wear out his welcome after 3 years, and then he'd have to move on somewhere else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, he lived that run right to a T, that's for sure. So now the other segment, we got a lot of responses for questions for the week. And this week we decided to go overseas. We got a chap by the name of Elliot Hall from Sheffield, England. Who sent us a question. Yeah, I mean, Leaf Nations has no boundaries, as you know. That's everywhere. Now, the thing is, this is a question we may get to, because actually what we're going to do once we finish this, we'll get to that in a second. There's a poll that we're going to do today before we bring Auston on. But What the question posed to us today is, what do either of us think of the reshaped Maple Leaf squad?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's hard to kind of, say how they're going to do or what have you. But, I think they've added some much needed leadership, some older guys that have been to the finals and, have gone through that kind of stuff, which I think, and I've been on teams that were really defensively sound. And I think that is going to be very interesting because, they're going to have to buy into the fact that they're going to have to play at both ends of the rink and be 200-foot players. And I think maybe these guys might be able to get some of those guys up front to thinking that way, and maybe they'll become a better defensive team. So, but they're going to have to in order to win in the playoffs. You don't win by scoring 6-7 goals in playoffs. You win by playing good defense and allowing 2-3 at the most, sometimes 1 or 0. And if you don't do that, you're not going to win in the playoffs.
Well, the thing about it too is, I like the fact, I think the moves they made, as we've talked about on the show many times, is the first move they made, moving Kapanen to free up some space right off the bat, I think was very critical in what Dubas's attempts were to improve the team over the offseason. But the fact is that they've created depth. And the window that he's worked in, as far as the salary cap goes, I think he's done a pretty strong job because he didn't have a lot of room. And the moves he made, I think, were pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like pretty much all of them, to be quite honest with you. TJ Brody's a great defenseman. He's a real solid defenseman. Mm-hmm. He's going to be good. Bogosian, I'll have to wait and see on that because he did struggle big time in Buffalo, but then, he played pretty good in Tampa last year, and in the playoffs, he did a pretty good job for them. With that, Simmons, I think, is going to add some much needed grit up front. Like to see him maybe as a guy that's in front of the net in the power play because he's been playing there for many years and has had a lot of success. So, yeah, I think he's done a pretty good job. Joe Thornton obviously is going to, he's going to be a factor. There's no question. He's going to be able to fit in and chip in a little bit here and there. But at the end of the day, these guys that are in their top 6 forwards and their top 4 defensemen are going to have to carry this team if they're going to get over that hurdle and get past that first round.
Well, I think on that note, what we'll do is we'll take this to the second phase because we want to address a lot of these things, because what we're going to do today is our friends at the Sun, Terry Koshin, actually posted a poll the other day, and they said, you can be the boss for the day. So what they're doing is they've sent a whole pile of questions and everything critiquing the Leafs on the moves they made in the offseason and to moves they possibly can make going forward. So Squid, you and I are going to take this questionnaire today and see what we can come up with. The first question we just basically answered. It was about what the moves were in the offseason and how do we think that Dubas fared. So I think we've kind of answered that one. So question number 2, I'll throw this one at you first, was which new player outside of TJ Brody do you expect to have the biggest impact on the Leafs?
You know what? I think, I'm going to have to go with 2 guys, and that's Thornton and Simmons. And I think mainly because Simmons, because of the way he plays, he's a guy that they needed badly, that type of player. He's like another Zach Hyman, but unfortunately not quite as young and not maybe, he's actually pretty quick. He's got pretty good hands. He's a pretty good player. He's getting up there in age, but I think he'll help. And Joe Thornton obviously will help with his passing ability, his ability to see the ice, and his leadership. And, Joe's been to the finals a couple of times, and he's been to the semifinals on a few other occasions. So he knows what it takes to get there. So he can help with that as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. It's pretty much is whatever they can get out of these guys with little remaining they have. And these guys are definitely on their last legs, so to speak. So as much as
the other 2 guys, Vesey and
Bogosian.
VC and Bogosian, we're going to have to wait on those guys. VC, is he going to be a factor? I don't know. Is he even going to play that much in Toronto? Is he going to be a kind of an extra forward? Bogosian, the same thing as a defenseman. If he plays like he did in Tampa last year, then he might be in the top 4. If he doesn't, if he played like he did in Buffalo, he might be in the press box. So,
well, and again, that's why you have this competition for it, which leads us right into the next question is, with Riley, Brody, and Muzzin as the top 3 defensemen, who are the next 3? So, I mean, I would start this one off as I think that, Bogosian's going to be in the running, but you got to speak about Lehtinen and Hall. But I'd take Hall, Dermott, and Bogosian to start right off. Lehtinen, he's going to be in the mix, but I'll pick those 3 because they're basically proven, and I think that's the way they'll start the season.
Yeah, that's what I have circled here too, Mike, to be honest with you. And I think, I don't know Lehtinen. I've never seen him play. I mean, obviously everything I hear is real positive, but you don't just come over from Europe and all of a sudden most guys start, becoming great players in the NHL. It takes time to adjust. So, yeah, I would think that those 3 guys will probably be the next 3, but maybe he surprises us all and comes in here and ends up as the 4th or 5th defenseman. So we don't know that yet.
I mean, we do want that to be the problem, by the way, because that's better for a team to have that surprise guy come out of camp that just makes the team and makes an impact. And if I had to pick a guy, he would be the guy that could be. That would be the guy I would probably pick. Now, moving to our next one, it says Dubas said the Leafs had to become much tougher to play against. What level of confidence do you have that he addressed this problem?
Well, you got high, average, and low, and I got mine somewhere between high and average, kind of right in the middle of that, because you've got to, I think he's brought in some of the necessary parts that he needs to, and I think he's improved their defense by quite a bit, actually, over last year, as far as their depth and goes and everything. If they happen to have injuries, I think they got enough depth that their defense is pretty strong. Mm-hmm. But again, I think he's done a good job, but the whole team has to buy in the fact that they all have to play 200 feet and they have to become a better defensive team. Otherwise, they're not going anywhere in the playoffs. And that's part of the thing is that, if they play good, solid defensive hockey as an entire team, they'll get over that hump and get out of that first round. And who knows what happens after that.
Well, I'm with you on that. I mean, I would say I would just take the wait and see sort of approach, not to be chicken about this, but go with average as far as being a little tougher to play against, because it all depends on what you just addressed with Thornton and Simmons, who, again, how much is left in the tank with these guys. And if they play to the potential that is almost expected why they were signed and the other players pick up on that, then my average can be moved to above average very quickly. And we'll notice that probably within the first dozen or so games. Now, on that extent,
if they play.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
Thought I'd throw that in there.
We're basing all this on the fact that there is going to be a season, which I think there will be. Yeah. Now we've kind of addressed this next one about how he's improved the team defensively, so we'll leave that one. But consider what we know about the offseason additions. Here's a loaded question for everybody. If we could turn the clock back to the beginning of October, would you have traded Nylander to take a harder run at Alex Pietrangelo? Yes or no?
Wow. You know what? That is a tough question.
It is.
It really is. I mean,
I'm with you.
But I would think, I guess if it was me looking at the depth that I think they have at forward, I probably would have tried anyway to see if I could get some prospects, some good prospects, and maybe high draft picks. And then, like you said, take a run at Pietrangelo for your defense. And then, who knows what he would have commanded to come to Toronto. I mean, I don't know, what did he sign for in Vegas? 9.5 or 9. So, that's a pretty high number. He probably would have had to shed more salary in order to acquire him.
Well, remember tax benefit too, right? So the tax benefit adds 30%, adds a big number.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, Yeah, I would have been inclined to at least try and see what I could get for him. And if you can get a couple of good prospects and a first round pick or something, then, maybe you do it anyway because you're getting a good return. And then it gives you an opportunity to go and sign. If you don't get Petrangelo, then maybe you get, somebody else, another better defenseman.
Well, I wouldn't mind them getting Nate Schmidt, actually, when they just gave him away to sign Petrolangelo. I think I would have done that, but
Yeah, or Krug.
or Krug. But yeah, that is a tough question. And I would have been almost inclined to take the opposite side of that. And I would have said no, only on the understanding that there's no guarantee you would sign Petrolangelo. All you're going to do is free up some money to sign him. And I'm telling you, you're taking a big risk signing the guy. He would have wanted a big number, and you're tying two very high profile players up that are let's put it in their 30s, and Petrolangelo and Tavares, that could be declining assets in a couple of years. And that's a lot of cap space to be tied up in two players that may not be playing in 4 years. So,
Well, yeah. And that's a big thing. Like you say, I mean, I would have explored it to see what it could fetch out there.
yes, exactly. I agree with that.
If the return was really good, I would have done it just to get that cap space open. And I'm not saying I would have signed Petro. I mean, I wouldn't have given him a 7-year deal. No chance. I mean, not at his age, but with all that extra money, a guy like Krug, who's not quite that age, and a couple other young, maybe guys that are out there, could have eaten up that 7 point whatever million or whatever that you just got rid of.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, now that would have been made, and especially if you get a nice return coming back, you can't turn it away. And I mean, and again,
if you're not getting a good return, you go, okay, I'm not doing it.
And by the way, it doesn't mean you have to do anything right now. You can wait till the season starts and use those assets or what you've freed up later on, because there's going to be some teams that are going to be moving players at some point, as you know, they always do. So speaking of moving players, the next one's about the goalie, who is very controversial in the offseason. And a lot of talk about possible trade with goalies, and his name was obviously mentioned, but nothing happened. So should the Leafs have kept him or not?
Yeah, I believe they should have. I mean, first of all, you're looking forward to the expansion draft when Seattle comes in. But Freddie's a good goalie, and Freddie has played exceptionally well for Toronto since he's come over from Anaheim. And, the guy on a lot of nights faces anywhere between 30 and 45 shots on any given night. And, his goals against and his save percentage are still pretty good. I say no, I definitely wouldn't have traded him, because you don't want to leave two of your young goalies exposed for the expansion draft. So if Freddie, has a decent year and they're able to re-sign him, then you put Hutchison on the list to be picked up by Seattle if in fact they choose it.
Yeah, and they've dealt with that with some of the couple of the offseason signings. So I think there is some room there for the Leafs to do that. Goalies are a very different breed. Have to see how the year plays out. There's going to be a number of free agents next year. So this is the problem you're going to deal with midseason, I think. And that's how we really have to kind of leave it at this point. The next question about contracts, I don't think we want to jinx them and talk about the Stanley Cup. So we'll move to the next question. It was, who are the best wingers for Matthews to play with? And I said, for me, I'll leave this one off. I think right off the bat, I'm okay with either Marner or Linehander, but the guy that has to play with him, he's one of those guys. It's almost like Phil Kessel playing with Tyler Bozak. Zach Hyman has to play with Matthews. It just seems to be something that just works with the two of them. And I don't really think on the other side, it really matters much.
No, I don't think.
Between Marner or Nylander, actually.
Well, either that, or the only other scenario I could see with that is maybe putting Simmons on the right side with him. And putting someone else on the left side. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
If it's not a guy like Simmons, who plays a very similar style to Zach Hyman, I would put Hyman there for sure. But there is a possibility that maybe you put Simmons on the right side and you put someone else on the left side. And, so that's a possibility to look at too. But right now, I would say Hyman and Marner would be my pick right now.
Yeah, and that's your comment in Simmons isn't lost, because listen, if that becomes fruition, that means this team has stepped up immensely, because remember, he's projected to be fourth line, third line at best, Simmons.
No, well, I think he can play in their top six.
If he can do that, then that's a big win.
Yeah, because that makes their third line stronger, and then that makes their fourth line stronger. So, I think Wayne Simmons can play in their top six if he's given that opportunity, because, you have him on one line and Zach Hyman on the second line, or first, second, whatever way you want to put it. They're both similar players. They go in, they retrieve pucks, and they get them to the other guys. So you need that almost on every line to be successful.
Well, speaking of the one guy, what about this next question? Where do we see Mr. Thornton, who got just a little over 13 minutes of ice time in San Jose last year, who was not a good hockey team? Where do you see him playing with Toronto this year? Fourth line center, third line center? Is he going to be up and down the lineup as Keefe sees fit, or power play specialist and maybe a little more?
You know what? I think, first of all, I think he'll be counted on for faceoffs. In certain situations. He is a good face-off guy. I don't see him playing fourth line. I see him playing third. Worst case scenario, may have to move him to the wing or move Kerfoot to the wing. Who knows? But I don't see him playing on the fourth line. I see him playing third line, worst case scenario.
Well, it brings us to the next question. Next one we've already addressed is sort of where Bogosian fits in, and we've kind of addressed that already, so we'll pass that one. But the next one is, which trio makes the most sense for the third line? And you're looking at Robertson, Thornton, Simmons, Robertson, Kerfoot, and Simmons, Vesey, Kerfoot and Simmons, or Kerfoot, Thornton, and Simmons, or somebody else.
You know what? Again, everything's kind of up in the air. I think everybody's assuming Simmons is going to play on the third line automatically.
You've got
my personal opinion is he can play in the top six, and he can contribute and be a big part of that top six. Robertson, we're still in VC. They're two guys that I think we got to see a little bit more of, and we can't even count those guys as everyday players. I don't think right now. Robertson got a little bit of a taste last year in the playoffs. VC was okay in Buffalo, but he wasn't exceptional. And you still got to see. And I think Thornton would be a good third line centerman. Joe knows how to play in both ends of the rink. He's a good face-off guy. It's just a matter of, does Simmons play in the top six? If he doesn't, then yes, he's on the third line. I wouldn't put him on the fourth line. And, who knows who you got several other guys. I can't. The names avoid my memory as it's horrible right now. But the Russian kid that
Barbanov,
the soup guy there.
We got him in the top six.
And you got Engvall. And you got Engvall.
And Engvall's there too. That's the guy that I was saving him. You don't want to forget about him. He made an impact last year.
There's a guy right there that probably is a real solid third line guy.
Absolutely.
And can kill penalties. And so, you see maybe Thornton, if Simmons doesn't crack the top six or they don't give him an opportunity there, then you got Simmons, Thornton, and Engvall. Well, that's a pretty good checking line if they, in my personal opinion, I don't see, guys like Robertson. I think they're guys that if they don't play in your top six, they don't play. That, in my opinion, because I think your third line has to be a good, solid, 200-foot line, and your fourth line has to be somewhat of an energy line, get things going.
Well, I think that the kid. I don't disagree with you, but on this one, we'll agree to disagree a little bit on this one, because I'm going to say, I think Kerfoot's going to get a shot to keep his center spot, even though he looked better in the wing near the end of the year. I also think that you can give Robertson a better look. He's going to have to start there because I don't think he can crack the top six just yet in training camp, but he may end up there before the season's out. And the other side, I think, is going to come down to Engvall or Barbanov, because I think there's Barbanov, they're high on him. He's going to get a shot. And then your fourth line is going to be a battle with Thornton will be there. You're going to have Jason Spezza, Simmons will be there. And then there's a couple of other forwards. Vessey's going to be there also. So there's going to be a number of other guys that are going to be competing for spots too. So if that works.
The good thing, Mike, is that we're talking about all these different scenarios, which means there's competition for every single job. And
that's the biggest point. You're right.
That's what I like.
I agree, Squid, 100%. That's the key, is there's competition for jobs.
Yeah, even on defense, it's the same scenario. Yep. I mean, there's competition throughout the entire lineup. And to me, that's nothing but a very, very positive thing.
Well, and by the way, we haven't even mentioned the kid that was supposed to be Rasmus Sandin, who was supposed to be almost a given to make the team. We haven't even got him in the top 6.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. Well, he may need another year in the American Hockey League. You never know.
Which is fine. Get him over ready.
And that's okay. I mean, I saw him when I played that guys were brought in way too early, and it's not a bad thing to play in junior for another year or two, or the American Hockey League for a year or two, because it is a big, big jump from junior or the American Hockey League to the National Hockey League. And so I just love the fact that we're talking about all these names and there's competition throughout the entire lineup. And for me, that is going to be really, really important.
What's just going to be Keith's hardest job is keeping everybody happy, because there's only so many pucks to go around and there's only so much ice. So, that's going to be his challenge.
And, as a coach, that's what you want.
You know that.
I mean, that's what you want. And, it's not like the old days where the rule was I called it the 21 rule, where you had 7 players that loved you, 7 hated you.
Yeah.
Your job was to keep the 7 that were undecided away from the 7 that hated you. So, and I'm sure that that's what you had to do in the 80s and the 70s and that sort of thing. But
but it's true. You're right.
Yeah.
Somebody's always, speaking of being unhappy, how about this? Here's the next loaded question for you. We've been talking about Freddie. Jack Campbell showed his wear last year. Good teammate, good solid backup. Somebody they've been lacking the last couple of years, since we lost our guy. We won't mention anymore. But how many games does he get this year? 15, 20, 25, 30?
Well, I guess a lot depends on how many games they play.
Yeah, it's a 48-game schedule, we'll call it. So let's leave that number aside then. So cut that in half.
It depends on there's a lot of talk about them playing, flying out and playing like 2 or 3 nights in a row and that sort of thing. So that plays into it too, if that happens. But if it's kind of a normal schedule where they're not playing, back to back all the time or 3 nights in a row, whatever, I would say 15 might be a little high. Maybe I would say 10 or maybe 15 out of 48.
Yeah, it's a 30. And then you got a nice fresh Freddie who's basically playing regular season minutes then, because if he gets 30, that gets him up to, if they go somewhere in the playoffs, that, you're talking another 20 games if they had to be, that's 50 games, right? So that keeps him right in.
I don't know if I'd give him 15 if it's 48, but it'd be somewhere between 10 and 15.
Well, it depends how he's playing. And depends. And again, goalies are so strange. If he gets hot and starts playing, well, let him go. And if Freddie gets hot and he's feeling good, well, that's.
Well, and that's the other variable is if Freddie stumbles and like he has been earlier in the seasons in the last few years, that maybe that's when you have to kind of go, alternate them maybe for the first 15 games or something and see what happens.
Well, I think and speaking of another curious move for the lineup, which player, first-year player, are you curious? This is for the question thrown at everybody out there regarding where he will play in the lineup. Now, the guys they've chosen for this list that Terry chose were Nick Robinson, Alexander Barbanoff, and Mikhail Lehtinen.
Well, they got to make the team first. Nothing's written in stone that those guys are even going to be on the roster. They're good. They're all good players. They come with, good. Everybody's talking really good things about these 3 guys.
Well, let's say they made
a little bit of Robinson last year.
Yeah.
And I think he can play at that level.
Yeah.
He's going to have to show that rather quickly because this is a short season. Don't forget.
Well, I think you answered it already though, because this is where the player you're most curious about where they'll play in the lineup. So you've touched on it already. You think he can play in the top 6. So that would be.
Well, no, what I'm saying is I think he's a top 6 type player. I don't know if he's a third or fourth line guy that can play that role.
I hear what you're saying. So he would be a guy that you would pick that if he's playing in the top 6, that's a big win for the Leafs.
Oh, well, there's no question about that. If he's in your top 6 and he's playing well, then that just makes your third and fourth lines that much better and that much stronger.
And again, the depth.
And it also opens up the possibilities of moving someone in your top 6 for some really good prospects or draft picks down, mid-season or whatever.
Exactly. Well, that brings us then. Well, my guy I would have picked out of that was, he is kind of the obvious guy to look at because he did get the taste last year, but I'm going to go with Lettinen because I think that I'll call him as a diamond in the rough that comes out of camp that surprises people. It just seems the way they're talking about and they're trying to keep it low key, and the way he's just been preparing and coming over, looks like hopefully he gives us that little surprise.
Well, we hope he does, but
we do want that.
There's no guarantee in those situations, and adapting from the European big ice surface and coming over here and playing in the National Hockey League, there's a lot of differences there.
There's and again, language and all that's all the things and lifestyle and all that. And speaking of all those things, if the Leafs don't make the play, or if the Leafs, assuming the Leafs make the playoffs, what becomes of Dubas if the Leafs fall to make it past the first round again, or fail to make it past the first round again? Fire him. He's had more than enough time to build a winner. Nothing. Stay in the job because there's plenty of work to be done.
Well, I would say that he wouldn't be going anywhere. And I say that because really he's only been the guy in charge for 2 years now.
Yeah, it'll be 2.
So, I think you got to give him another year to see if he can, turn things around, because he's really technically only been in charge of everything for a couple of years now. So I think you definitely give him another opportunity.
Now, what about the coach? The feeling on the coach, it's only been a year and the sample size is still not really big enough, but how's the confidence level? So I'm sort of paraphrasing the question here, but is it high? It's okay. Or if the Leafs don't make the playoffs, the two of them would get a ribbon tied around their heads.
If they don't make the playoffs, that's a different story.
Yeah. Or they get beaten in the first round.
Well, I think, considering that he's only had basically a year, you got to look at, how well the team played under him, which I think they played pretty darn good.
Yep.
With the exception of the failure in the first round or the play-in round this past season. But, and with a short season this year, you can't make those drastic changes in the coach and the general manager based on that. I think you got to give them more time.
There's got to be more to it than that. And and speaking of which, there's been some moves, and this is usually the first sign of a coach getting his warning. Maybe not a pink slip. Maybe he's getting what's the difference between red and pink? That color in between. He's getting, what is that? He's getting that color slip already with the change in the assistant general managers or assistant coaches, with the two new guys a couple of new guys being brought in with Mahaltra and McLean. What do you think are these significant moves for the Leafs? Are they're not going to make a difference one way or the other, or they set the Leafs back?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I think it's going to really help.
I agree.
Personally, Paul McLean, I think, is a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
Maholtra really hasn't been at it that long, but I think he'll add something. And the reason I say that I think these are real good moves is these are two guys that played in the National Hockey League and had pretty good careers and played a long time. And I don't think you can overlook that fact that
no.
The guys that they had in there before as their assistants never played at that level. So, and of course, McFarland or whatever his name is, he left to go be the GM and coach of Kingston in the OHL. So, he left on his own accord. It's not like he was pushed out, but I like guys that played in the league and then have coached for a little bit. Paul McLean's been coaching for 30 years probably.
It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
No. I think it's going to make them stronger. To be quite
And it makes
honest
them,
with you.
I think it makes them stronger, and I wouldn't disagree with that.
And it gives Sheldon Keefe some really good help as well.
Well, it gives them another ear to listen to, and
Yeah.
a voice that comes from experience and has played in the league and coached in the league. So, I mean, that is definitely going to be a help. It can only be a positive. I'd like to have seen our buddy Gabby there, but that's another story.
Yeah, but I don't think that was going to happen. Gabby as an assistant, having played for the Leafs, everybody would be looking at that as, and Sheldon. I mean, I don't think that's a good thing for Sheldon.
No, and you know what? I get that totally, because everybody been in cheerleading for that would have been fair to Keefe, because even though Boudreau told us he would take that job, but right away, the first day the first loss, they're going to be crying for Boudreau to be head coach.
Well, if I'm the general manager, that's the last thing I'm even thinking of doing.
Yeah,
because I got the coach I like. He's a coach that coached for me in major, junior, and I'm the guy that brought him in. I want other guys that, that'll be there to help them. And I think those are great moves by the team to bring those two guys in.
Well, I think we're getting near the end here. We got a couple of questions left to go, so we're dragging this on a little bit. But we got a glimpse of the line featuring Matthews, Tavares, and Marner in Game 5 against Columbus. Do the Leafs, you and I were talking about this a little bit off air, do the Leafs have the kind of depth at 4 that allows Keith to go with that look on a more regular basis? Yes or no?
No, definitely not. I think, you're taking probably your 3 top skilled guys and putting them all in, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, I guess, the saying that's used. I think you move them around a little bit. I don't have a problem with, after a penalty, you kill a penalty off, throwing them out there, because more than likely the other team's 3rd or 4th line is coming out. So, and that's what they've done in the past. So I don't see that as a problem, but keeping them together full time, I don't think that's a good thing to do.
No, I mean, it's a nice.
It weakens your second line.
It's a nice option if in the last couple of minutes, or if there's a 5-on-3 power play. Obviously, they put them on, but I mean, we're somewhere you want to get a little bit of juice going for a couple of minutes here and there, but not regular. No, I don't think so. That breaks up what they're trying to set and the standard they're trying to establish as a hockey club. So, I would think that's not going to happen. Well, I think we've come to near the end of our couple other questions left in it that we're just going to kind of leave. We don't want to jinx them with those answers, so we're going to leave it at that. But I think right now, anything to add? Well, quick little summary. What do you think there, Squid, as a result of that little survey as Leafs as a whole? A lot of wait and see, isn't there?
Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of wait and see. I mean, you got guys coming from Europe that have never played in North America in junior or in semi-pro, minors or the NHL. You got some older guys coming in that have been great players in the NHL, but they're getting a little bit older, but they do have the experience of going a little bit of a long way in the playoffs. So, wow, it's like, you've done a lot of good things, I think, to make this team much better than it probably has been.
Yeah.
But there's just too many wait and sees, and how's this guy going to do? How's this guy going to do? It's kind of like, let's see what happens out of camp.
No, you're right. And, listen, the thing about this is the fact that we always want that element of surprise. It's going to happen both bad and good. And the one thing is, it's all about the depth. And I know that's a very cliche statement, but it's how the depth plays. So what you want, though, we can't see that Thornton and Simmons and Spezza are the best players on the team. They certainly can't be that. But what they can do is provide elite depth positioning for the Maple Leafs when they are on the ice. That's what they do need, and that leadership and experience that they can bring. But they can't certainly be your best players because, again, we don't know what's left and what they have left to offer. What you need to do is, and then we need to see the Latinins of the world, you need Bogosian, all these guys step up and provide that depth. And even Jack Campbell has to have, when he plays, he's got to be on his toes and he's got to be solid, obviously, because if they can start there, it can just work up from there. And you got to hope that the elite players are going to do their jobs.
Well, and that's the key, I think. I mean, but the biggest thing that I'm really excited about with their roster is that we talked about it earlier. Is there's a lot of competition for spots,
Yes.
on everywhere throughout the lineup, and
I think
I
that's
love
great.
competition. I love the fact that they're all battling for their jobs, and some of them are going to end up in the American Hockey League, unfortunately, but that's a good thing.
I agree with you 100%. Hey, listen, I'd love nothing better to see Wayne Simmons playing with Matthews.
Yeah,
That's good. Now that can tell you one of two things. One, the other guys aren't playing very well, okay, and they have no choice. What we hope is that everybody's playing to their ability, and he's just playing one step better. And if you can ever get, and that can only be a good thing. So he's got something to prove to himself, to his family, to his friends from a positive standpoint. Thornton wants to show he's got something left. So there's lots of motivation from a lot of these guys. And Spezza now has got some company.
Yeah.
And
no,
you know what?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think all these guys they brought in, Brody and Bergosian and Thornton, and they all have a little bit left, and they want to show everybody that they do. They don't want to go out as guys that were signed to minimum salary contracts and didn't do a darn thing to help the team. So they got a lot to play for.
Yep, and it's good. I mean, I think we're going to be watching with very great interest, as we always do this. Usually not this time of the year, because usually we're analyzing the team after 20 games or so.
Yeah,
But
that's right. Yeah.
we will wait and see 20 days from now. Hopefully they are getting ready to, 20 days from now will actually be Christmas Day. So it won't be the day, but it'll be the next day. Hopefully they'll be having a training camp
the
session.
NBA are going to be playing 20 days from now.
They'll be playing 20 days from now. So anyway, now we want to bring you our interview with Auston Matthews from a couple months ago, just during the lockout period, and just listen to what the young man has to say.
The one that I got shut out of.
The one you got shut out from. So how's things go? How's the weather down here today, by the way?
It's a little warm. I'm not sure it's too appealing to really anybody, but it's getting into those months of the summertime where it's 105 every day, all day. So not much to do outside, for the majority of the day, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things we want to, of course, one of the things we want to talk about is, here, has this probably been the longest time you've been off skates since you've been a kid, like playing any kind of competitive hockey?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think from like my first year to like my third, fourth year, like the off seasons, I've taken more and more time off of skating, but obviously this is a bit of a different situation. So definitely the most time off I think I've had just not skating and just kind of unwinding.
So how's the training going?
It's good. It's good. I mean, it's been a bit different than your, I guess, average off season, but been making the most of it and doing everything I can to stay in shape and just be ready.
Now you've got a built-in road hockey goalie living with you. So
yeah.
Is there any matches going on in the driveway?
No, I lucked out. Having him here, just somebody to shoot on and just kind of I guess go through this with. Whether it was shooting pucks, shooting hoops, just nice to kind of have somebody with you, right? Just to kind of pass the time.
So here's one of the questions. I've been getting back to the training. Just got a lot of young viewers out there watching today. Take us through one of your workouts, like what you would do throughout the day as a training session.
I mean, I've kind of done some different stuff, here. I think I'm starting to kind of get away from like heavy weightlifting, I think, and just trying to kind of get my body just kind of feeling good and just kind of moving as well as I can. Cause I mean, I'm pretty big and pretty strong, but I want to, kind of be able to move like some of these smaller guys are able to move. So just kind of been trying some different stuff and hopefully it kind of works out.
Yeah. So have you been able to get on the ice at all in your quarantine period or down isolated?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have been to get on the ice. I'm lucky. So, I've been kind of trying to keep everything, shake the rust off and kind of stay in shape and just kind of, get your timing and everything back. But obviously it's nothing like, competitive NHL practice, right? So just trying to stay in that kind of motion and stuff. So when I am back, I can adjust quickly.
the next thing now, psychologically, you're sitting at home and you're training, but nothing is like being at the rink or in your own real gym at the rink. Did you have to motivate yourself a little more to push yourself to stay training as hard as you do?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, I mean, I don't think there's really any extra motivation. Obviously, we're hoping that we can come back and play, and there's obviously a Stanley Cup up for grabs. So, I think that's as much motivation as you need right there.
Well, actually, I was going to say to you now, as Freddie's landlord, who designate the chores around the house? You?
No, I think it's a joint. It's a joint kind of production. I think everybody just kind of pitches in and does their part. But I mean, he's one of my closest friends on the team, and obviously he's like family to me. So I didn't hesitate to kind of invite him down here and stay with me. And I mean, he was nice enough to get me this really nice expensive coffee machine to kind of say thank you for letting him stay here. So it was very nice of him. He didn't need to do that.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So I think so here's a couple of things here. I mean, Rick, if he can join us in here, we're going to get to him at some point. When you played in the North American World Cup for the North American team in World Cup as a rookie, how much impact did that have on you, or take some of that anxiety you might have had as a rookie with high expectations coming into the Toronto camp?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those things. I didn't really know what to expect, right? Like I'd never. I'd play at some high levels. I played in the World Championships against NHL guys. In the Swiss League, you're playing against some ex-NHL veterans. So I didn't really know what to expect kind of going into it. Obviously, a lot of talented guys on the team. So I knew for myself, I was, starting off kind of as that 13th forward. So I kind of needed to earn my role and earn my position on the team. And I was lucky enough to have guys around me that I've known in the past or played with in the past to kind of help me adjust. But I think that was nice to kind of have that experience prior to my first NHL camp, just to I think psychologically just knowing that I can play and that I belong out here with some of the best players in the league, and obviously competing at a pretty high level in that tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and you could see it. And I mean, I think the other thing too is a lot of you guys were all roughly the same age, all within a couple of years of each other. So I think that bonding amongst all of you must have gone a long way too, especially when you're away from the rink, and because you're all basically in the same boat.
No, it absolutely did. And I think, the biggest moments that we had, I think of, you want to call bonding, was, definitely came outside of the rink, and, just dinners and stuff like that, and having a couple beers together and just kind of talking and just kind of bonding. So I think that stuff's super important. And like you said, we're all around the same age, all kind of going through I guess similar things, as far as our careers and how they're just kind of starting. So it was definitely an amazing experience.
Which leads me to the next part that we're going to ask is Patrick Marlow. Now there's a veteran who's been around, Hall of Famer to be for sure. And there's a guy that became a big brother to you and a number of the younger guys. I mean, we knew it seems like he was such a great guy. What was it about him that made this attraction and this bond with you and the other guys?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, he's just such a selfless person. Anything, he's just the guy that's always going to be there for you, no matter what the situation is or the scenario. And I think that's kind of something that, a lot of us kind of learned from him, and just, how he engages with each individual, with each teammate, staff member. I mean, he's the ultimate professional. So, those 2 years that I had with him were special ones. And even though we're not playing together anymore, I mean, he's a guy that he's a friend for life. So I'm really fortunate that I got the opportunity to play with him, and then obviously create that bond.
Yeah, and I mean, you could see that almost filter throughout that club, because as I suspect, just the way you guys all liked each other.
Yeah,
I mean, you could see the way you can tell when guys play together whether they actually like each other or not, and that's not always the case in professional sports.
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone, and I mean, I've been lucky in my 4 seasons in Toronto. I mean, we've had great teams, great guys. Sometimes you can have a bad egg, and that can kind of put a bit of a damper on the team. But I mean, in my 4 years, it's just been all great guys. Whether they're still in Toronto or not, they're guys that you're gonna have relationships with and friendships with for life. So I feel really fortunate for that, and obviously Patty's one of those guys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, okay, so you were approaching. We want to appease the hockey gods and not throw any jinxes at it, but you were approaching that magical number with a 5 in front of it. And now, was there a point in time when you actually thought that was possible to reach that? I mean, obviously when you got to 47, but before that. And I only say that because now Rick, if he'll join us here at some point, when Rick was he was 22, by the way, when he scored scored 50 for the first time as a Maple Leaf. He said when he got to be at 45 goals, he realized never before had a Toronto player scored 50.
Yeah.
He didn't even know at that point. So what was your thoughts on all of that coming in?
I mean, to be honest, I just try to kind of keep my mind off it for the most part. But I think in the back of my head, I mean, I know what I'm capable of, and the expectations and the goals that I set for myself I think are higher than anybody else's are going to be. So, I mean, I think it's always in the back of your head, especially when you're kind of creeping up towards that number. And it's unfortunate I wasn't able to obviously complete that goal, and obviously with some games left. But I mean, I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm sure I'm hopeful to get another crack at it.
Well, I think you will. I'm a bit of a bet man the odd time, so I'm betting that you'll get another shot to do that. I'm sure, Austin.
Thank you.
Now, I think that one of the things that I'd ask you is when I followed the Leafs for every game last year and documented, I used to always check the warm-ups for you guys. And one of the things, well, let me set you up like this before I say that. Do you have any pregame rituals or any sort of pre-practice rituals that you do because every hockey player's got something they do that just every day they do this. We're all creatures of habits when it comes to the game.
Yeah, I do a lot of kind of like funky stuff, but I think it's just, I guess, your routine that you're going through, and it just feels right. So for myself, I mean, I like to get to the rink pretty early. I'm usually one of the first guys there, and I don't like to really be rushed. So whether it's a practice or a game, and I like to have a little bit of a snack, and then just kind of get into my whole routine, tape my stick, just kind of get everything aligned, get my my in-game drinks kind of going, like a BioSteel or something like that, and get some treatment, stretch, kind of do all these stretches in my warm-up all in the same order every time, and then I get dressed. I put on the left, like my left shin pad first, my left sock, left skate, weird stuff. And then for some reason, when I get to like my elbow, I always put my right elbow pad on first, and then I don't know, just like weird stuff, right? That I don't know. I guess when you think about it, it sounds crazy, but it's just kind of one of those psychological things. And then I say a prayer before I head out to warm-ups, and then it's kind of just game mode from there on.
Well, one of the things I noticed, and it did stand out after a while following you guys, after going 89 games. I mean, I did notice after a while in the warm-ups, you and Mitch were always last guys to leave the ice. And it caught me a few games to catch it, but I would notice that every game then I started looking for it, that you would put a puck in the red dot of the face-off circle on the shooting end, and you'd be on one knee, you'd take a few shots, but then you guys were always last guys to leave the ice, and you'd flip a few pucks around and make a few dazzling passes, and then toss a few pucks to the kids. I actually made some good graces with kids I'd see the kids with the signs, and I tell them they were trying to get a puck. I'd tell them where you would go because you guys threw them almost invariably at the same spot all the time. But what started that end of the pregame skate ritual?
I mean, it's good that you're reminding me of this stuff because a lot of it I've already forgotten. So once we get back to playing, I'm going to need you to maybe send me this interview so I can go back and make sure I'm doing all my crazy stuff. But yeah, I usually I come and meet Freddie kind of probably halfway through warm-ups, and then he goes in the net, and I put a puck there that I end up shooting probably a couple minutes later. But I don't really know what started it. I've always kind of liked being the last guy off in warm-ups, and I think my first year McCulloch was the guy that liked to be the last one off. So obviously I respected him, veteran guy, and let him do his thing. And then obviously once he was no longer with us, I was always kind of last guy. So and then I think just it's cool. I think our warm-ups, we tend to fill up the stands quite well, and there's a lot of kids that come down with signs and stuff like that. So I don't really see a problem kind of taking 5 seconds out of your warm-up to toss a kid a puck and kind of make his day. So I think that's
Yeah.
what the game's all about, and I don't think it's something that myself or Mitchie are going to stop doing.
Well, I'm sure you saw it, but I saw a couple smiles on the faces when they'd run after me and follow me after and show me the pucks, and it's worth it. Believe me, you're putting big smiles in some pretty big kids' faces. So,
Yeah, of course.
I know you're probably on the run and you're pretty busy. So one more question here, just for some of the people out there. Now, the dressing room, we touched on that before. Well, I was going to ask you PlayStation. Maybe this would be a double question. Who's the best Xbox PlayStation player in the team, and who's the biggest clown?
I'd say the best Xbox or PlayStation player would probably have to be Mitch Marner or Zach Hyman. Hyman started his own gaming company, so he takes it pretty seriously. He's pretty dialed in. And then the biggest clown. I don't want to say clown, but
No,
for sure
jokester. Okay,
the jokester for sure is Justin Hall. He's got quite the sense of humor. Just a nice guy to be around. Always makes a laugh. So I'd have to go with him. Awesome guy.
Well, that's awesome. Well, listen, Auston, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I can't believe Squid missed it all, but I don't know what happened to him. He probably pushed exit by mistake. But,
yeah, who knows? I was looking forward to talking to Rick.
Well, what we're going to do, though, is when we do that day event eventually happens, we're not going to, again, remember the hockey guys we're watching?
Yeah.
We're going to get you back on the podcast if we can, and we'll have a little chat with them about it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, my man. Listen, thanks very much, Auston, and the best of luck to you, and looking for you to get back here sooner than later.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Well, Squid, I hope people enjoyed that interview with Auston. That was done a number of months ago, as we mentioned, it was lockout and he was in the training period. But it's interesting and very interesting to hear that everybody seems to think that this kid is so quiet and doesn't really understand. Maybe he didn't understand what he was getting into in New York, Toronto. But, after listening to him, he was very well aware of what the Maple Leafs stood for, about what it meant to be drafted first overall, what it meant to play in this city. And you could just tell that he got it, 18 years of age. And, even though he's coming from Arizona, he understood the significance of getting drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that tournament, that playing for Team
North America
was a big help to him too, playing at Scotiabank Arena and the other big buildings, and playing with guys like McDavid and the likes. I think that really probably helped him a lot. But I mean, how could you not know? I mean, obviously he obviously knows the pressures of coming to a place like Toronto and being the #1 pick overall. And I think he's handled it pretty darn good. I mean, obviously he did. He scored 4 goals in his first game. So
so it seemed to work out okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, well that's a pretty good start, and then ends up scoring
47 last year,
and then 47 last year. So yeah, I would say he's
I think he adapted I think he got it pretty quickly, didn't he?
Yeah, I think
no,
so.
But he sound, but the nice thing to hear is that it sounds like a lot of the teammates get along. He has a lot of respect for the veterans. I mean, what I mean is he's not a cocky, brash young kid coming in. He appreciated being drafted by the Maple Leafs. It is a significant happening in his life and any hockey player's life. So some guys get that and some don't. And it appears that he does appreciate for what it stands for. And this guy wants to win. Make no mistake about it. It's not all about just being out there and playing the game. You can tell there is some passion, some fire in his blood.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually saw that more last year than the previous years, where I saw him using his size to take guys off the puck and even in the defensive zone as well. So I think, that's one of the things. Like, it's not easy when you're 18 coming in here, even though he's a big guy, but he's got a unbelievable talent, and he's added a little bit more last year of that physical play and the ability to knock guys off the puck that I saw. And I think that's gonna, if he can keep doing that, I think that's only going to make him a better player all around.
Well, as we said, that interview was from back in June. And when we spoke to him, you and I, although you got cut out of that because of a technical difficulty, not ours, it's the other network that we were on doing this for, is when we brought Auston on as our guest. But he's back training again. But his training partner back in that day was Freddie Anderson when we were talking back in June. He's got a little different training partner today as we speak.
And a pretty good one.
He's not bad. This kid's okay. I think he has a shot to make it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Connor McDavid, of course, we're referring to.
I mean, when you got Auston Matthews and Connor McDavid training together, like, I mean,
who wants to go in net, by the way, with those two?
Yeah, really. I mean, well, I'm not going on defense or in goal with those two guys on the ice. Not a chance of that happening. But you know, I mean, what they can pick each other's brains about and everything else, and the competition. I mean, that's only going to make those two guys rise to an even higher level.
But it's nice to see. It's
hard to believe they can even go to a higher level, Mike. But
that's the thing I was saying. It's nice to see two elite players like that training together, and especially two on opposite teams. And by the way, they could be playing each other a lot this year in the Canadian division.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Possibly. And well, I believe they both have the same agent, and sometimes that happens, you know. And but I mean, you know, for both of those guys, like, you know, you couldn't get a better situation for getting ready for the season. I mean, you're training with each guy's training with, well, they're both two of the top probably 5 centermen in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And they're training together. So, you know, what does that do for you, man? That's
got to be well. That's great for Maple Leaf fans because, you know, the work ethic of Connor David is apparently second to none. Maybe Steven Stamkos is right up there, but boy, oh boy, that's a good thing when you see a kid committing like that to train with the best in the game. So that's a good sign for Maple Leaf fans. And well, Squid, we're at that time again. We're at that time again where we want to thank Elliot from Sheffield, England, sending that question in today, folks. If you can send us questions, we got a bunch this week. We're going to get to one every week. If you can send it in.
They have a hockey team in Sheffield too, Mike.
The minor team. Remember, Jesse played for them. Jesse Schultz played for them, and he knew Jesse. And and I met another family of 3. I met them during my trip. They came to Toronto, and they were in their Sheffield.
You were telling, yeah.
Oh yeah, they were characters, and you know, they were over watching the Leafs play, and boy oh boy. So that's the hockey and the Maple Leaf Nation, as we said, has no boundaries.
Yeah.
So folks, any of your questions, happy to get to them if we can. Send them to mike@ultimateleafsfan.com. Squid and I will be back on the air next week. Tune us in. We usually record Thursdays, so you'll give us a little bit of hopefully something between now and Thursday happens, and then we drop on Saturday. So look for it, Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan on our YouTube page. Look for it, Rick Vaive on Instagram. He's on Twitter, Ultimate Leafs Fan on YouTube. And we're on most of the podcast sites now, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. And we're all over the place now, Squid. So there's no excuse, but I still have some of the old guys calling. How'd I tune you guys in? But just punch in YouTube, Ultimate Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan, or Squid and ULF, and you'll get us.
Well, it's like that old song, I've been everywhere. Yeah, we're everywhere, Mike.
We are. And, you know, that's always a good thing. So, folks, we want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys all next week.